You ever get that feeling like maybe you were just the family intern, not the actual son? Yeah, that was me, 33 now. But this story starts way, way earlier. Growing up, I used to think my parents were just really, really busy. They ran a regional media company in California TV, podcasts, digital ads, that kind of thing. Everyone around me would be like, wow, your parents must be so cool. And I'd just laugh because what the hell do you say to that when you haven't had a dinner with both of them in the same room since you were like 7? I mean, yeah, we had money, fancy house, private school, a nanny named Renee who made better pancakes than my mom ever did. But what I didn't have presence, support, literally any emotional connection that didn't come with a quarterly marketing update. I used to wait for my mom in the kitchen on Sundays, just sitting at the island like some sad puppy hoping she'd remember I existed. Half the time, she'd walk past on her phone like I was furniture. Fast forward 8 years. I'm 11. They have my sister, Allison. Blue eyes, gold curls, walked at 9 months, said mama in front of the board at a press event, and boom, she was officially the company mascot. I'm not kidding. They printed her face on brochures. From then on, it was like I had a new job, be invisible. But not embarrassing. I wasn't allowed to act out, wasn't allowed to mess up, but also wasn't worth investing in. Just kinda there. A background character in the perfect family brand. Thing is, I didn't become bitter not right away. I just got really, really good at being on my own. Flash forward college, work, growing the hell up. I busted my ass. Journalism major, top of my class, interned, freelanced, got lucky, and broke a small corruption story that blew up. That was my thing, digging deep, telling the truth no one wanted to say out loud. I made a name for myself. Not huge, but solid. Meanwhile, Allison. She barely passed high school, dropped out of college in 6 months, and then became, I shit you not, an aesthetic wellness content creator, which is basically rich kid slang for posts, skincare hauls, and trauma dumps on TikTok while skipping work. And guess who funded that glamorous lifestyle? Yep, the same parents who told me to get over it when I asked for help buying a used Honda in college. Look, I didn't hate her. I just didn't know her. We weren't siblings. We were people raised in 2 different universes who happened to share a bloodline. I tried once or twice to talk to her about, maybe using her role in the family company to do something that mattered. But she'd always hit me with some version of, that's your thing. Jake, I'm about vibes. Vibes. My parents, they doubled down on the delusion. Told everyone Allison was co-leading operations at the company. Bro, she showed up to meetings late and left halfway through because her crystals were misaligned or some shit. Last year, my wedding, the one they low-key sabotaged. I met Danny in New York. She's sharp, runs her own fashion PR firm, and calls people out without blinking. Total badass. She made me feel grounded, seen, all the shit I didn't even realize I'd been craving. We planned a small but epic wedding in Venice. Not for flexing, just meaningful. We flew out a tight guest list, paid for everything ourselves. It was emotional, intimate, not a peep of help from my folks. By the way, when I tried to invite them to a pre-wedding dinner, they ghosted me. Allison showed up with some himbo boyfriend named Cole and looked annoyed the whole time, like we had the audacity to be happy without her being center stage. Afterward, I found out my parents told people they had paid for my education, my career, my everything, which is funny because I had the receipts, loans, side hustles, a secondhand MacBook I kept alive with duct tape for 5 years. I was pissed. I didn't confront them. I just distanced. Thought maybe it was better that way. I had Danny now. I had peace. Then, 3 weeks ago, the bomb drops. We get this invite to dinner at my parents' house. First one in literal years. Danny's suspicious, but I'm like, maybe they're trying to turn a corner. Dinner starts normal. Passive-aggressive wine refills. Mom compliments Danny's dress, but also says she could never pull off such bold colors. Allison's not there, which, relief. Then dessert hits, and my dad drops it. So, we're hoping you can help with Allison's wedding. She's having a hard time financially, and I didn't even hear the rest. My brain just flatlined. They wanted me the outcast son they never claimed to pay for Allison's destination wedding in Hawaii. Apparently, they lost money in a lawsuit. Business slow. But they couldn't let Allison be disappointed. Not their star, not their brand. I laughed. Like, loud laughed. Danny looked horrified. I said, "You want me to sponsor the family you pretended I wasn't part of seriously." They didn't even blink. My mom said, "Jake, this could really help bring us all closer again." WTF? I didn't scream. I didn't storm out. I said, "Sure, but I want two things. Silence." 1, I design the wedding. Everything. 2, I give a speech. They agreed. Too quickly. That's when I knew they still didn't see me coming. So, yeah, they agreed. They thought I was just being petty, that this was some insecure middle child flex, that I'd drop a few vendor names, pick some flowers, give a boring toast, and call it a day. But nah. I was already building something else. The moment I got home that night, I opened my laptop and started outlining a podcast. A real one. Not some venting episode, I mean a cleanly edited, slow burn, 6-episode series I'd been wanting to do for years. One I never had the nerve for. I called it Unfiltered Bloodline. Not subtle, I know, but screw subtle. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about every kid who grew up invisible while the golden child got all the sunlight. Every person who got erased, rewritten, replaced. Each episode would peel back a layer. Childhood neglect, corporate image versus family dysfunction, the chosen child versus the discarded one. The final episode titled The Wedding That Was Never Hers. All I needed was the right ending. So yeah, I accepted the job. I planned the hell out of that wedding, and I made sure it would piss off every single person involved. I chose a venue on the edge of Oahu, not some Pinterest-ready beach villa, but a mid-century community center that hosted local dance classes and senior potlucks. It had a courtyard and a view of the ocean. Sure, but the paint was chipped, the tables were plastic, and the vibe was 100% not influencer-friendly. The theme rooted in reality. I kid you not, I printed it on the invitations. Allison wanted champagne towers and floral chandeliers. I gave her vintage Polaroid booths and biodegradable napkins with affirmations like, "Entitlement is not a love language." She threw a tantrum, like full scream cry call mom energy. I told her, this is what happens when someone who actually shows up pays for stuff. My parents tried to intervene. My dad sent a list of non-negotiables that included a violinist, an ice sculpture of swans, and a quote from their wedding engraved into the seating chart. I deleted the email. Danny was watching all of this with a raised eyebrow. I think she was low-key scared of what I'd do, but also impressed. "You're not just burning the bridge," she said one night. "You're turning it into a content studio." "Damn right," I told her, "and we're gonna go viral." Meanwhile, I started contacting people. Renee, the nanny who practically raised me, I tracked her down in Nevada. She cried when I called. Said she still had my drawings in a box. Said my mom used to tell guests she was just the help and not to let her speak too much. I interviewed her. I found my 8th grade teacher, the one who used to write me notes in my lunchbox because my parents didn't have time. She told me she'd always wondered what happened to me. I interviewed her too. Then I dug deeper. Found old coworkers who said Allison used to no-show for weeks and throw staplers when people disagreed with her. Found a guy who got fired because he questioned her brand strategy. Each story layered in. Each voice told the same quiet truth. The family I came from was a facade. And I wasn't crazy for feeling erased. This wasn't revenge. Not exactly. This was documentation. A week before the wedding, I dropped the teaser episode. Just music, some voice clips, my narration over an old voicemail from my mom where she said, "Allison just needs more attention right now. Sweetie, be patient." The episode ended with, "Some of us waited a lifetime, and we're done waiting." Within 24 hours, it had 30,000 listens. By day 3, it was on Apple's trending list, Hashtags popped up. #unfiltered bloodline, #golden child syndrome. People were DMing me their own stories. Strangers saying, this hit way too close. Allison called me at 2 a.m., hysterical, said I was ruining everything, said sponsors were backing out, and Cole's mom canceled her flight. I told her I hadn't even said her name yet. My mom left a voicemail trying to negotiate narrative rights. My dad emailed me legal threats with Comic Sans headers. I blocked both. Danny just kept nodding and handing me green tea like a war medic. The wedding day came. It was humid. Windy. The arch I picked kept falling over. Allison was late. Half the guests were influencers, standing around confused because there was no step and repeat banner. I walked around like I was scouting a film set. Microphone in my pocket, Danny filming bits with her phone, just capturing the vibes. Allison showed up 90 minutes late, in a sheer designer gown and fake smile. She looked at the folding chairs and gasped like someone had just murdered her Pinterest board. "I cannot believe you did this," she whispered through clenched teeth. I smiled. "Believe it. Your vows start in 20. Everyone gathered. It wasn't a big crowd, mostly Mom's friends, some distant cousins, and Cole's crew who all looked like they were waiting for a DJ set. No violinist, no swans, just honesty and a mic. I waited for the officiant to wrap up, waited for the room to get still, then stood, took the mic, and said, "Hi, I'm Jake. Some of you may know me as the guy who made this day happen. Some of you probably know me as the one my parents tried to forget. Silence, the kind that makes your heart beat louder. See, growing up in this family wasn't about love. It was about optics. I learned early that you don't get affection, you earn proximity. And I didn't play well for the cameras." I looked at my mom. She looked like she was trying to astral project into a different timeline. But today, I bought the whole damn frame, and I'm putting myself back in it. I turned to Allison. "You're not the villain. You're the product. And I hope one day you realize that being the favorite doesn't mean being free." I ended with, "This wedding was never yours. It was a mirror. I just held it up." And I walked off. No applause, just air so thick you could chew it. Danny followed. We got into the rental car. She looked at me and said, "You good?" I said, "I will be." We drove back in silence. I posted the final podcast episode that night. It hit #1 by morning. The next morning was weirdly quiet. No text from my mom, no rage email from my dad, not even a "you ruined everything" from Allison. Just quiet. I laid in bed, scrolling. The final episode of Unfiltered Bloodline was everywhere. On the Easy Family Drama subreddit, on TikTok, stitched into reaction videos. One clip of my speech had over 600K views with the caption, "When the black sheep buys the whole damn farm." I wasn't even proud yet. I felt numb. Like I just walked out of a storm. I'd been inside my whole life, and now I didn't know what to do with the silence. Danny leaned over me, half asleep, and mumbled, "Are we canceled yet?" "Depends on who you ask." I said. She pulled the covers over her face. "Good. Wake me up when the lawsuits start." Around 2 p.m., I got a knock on the hotel room door. It was Allison. No makeup, hair tied back, hoodie that definitely wasn't designer, eyes red and puffy like she'd been crying since sunrise. She didn't say anything, just looked at me. I stepped aside. She came in, stood in the middle of the room, and just broke. "I didn't know," she whispered. I didn't say anything. I let her talk. "I didn't know you were treated like that. I thought you didn't care. Mom always said you were distant, that you were busy, cold." She paused. "She told me you were jealous of me." I actually laughed, bitter and sharp. "Yeah, well, I guess it worked." She looked at me like she didn't know who I was. "You hate me." I shook my head. "No, I hate what they made us." We sat in silence for a while. Danny left the room to give us space. I watched the podcast. Allison said finally. All of it. I didn't sleep. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. It's all true. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. She said, I thought I had a hard childhood because they put pressure on me to look perfect. But I didn't know you were just left out of the picture entirely. I said, they didn't need me to be perfect. They needed me to disappear. She stared at the carpet for a long time, then said, I'm sorry. And for the first time in maybe ever, I believe she meant it. 2 days later, I flew back to with Danny. My phone was blowing up. Agents, interview requests, podcast networks offering deals. A producer wanted to option Unfiltered Bloodline for a limited docuseries. Even got a message from a famous therapist who wanted me on their show to talk about emotional invisibility within successful families. Danny laughed. You just turned family dysfunction into a media brand. That's so on brand. But I didn't feel like celebrating. Not yet. My inbox had one unread message from my mom. Subject line, Emma won't speak to us. Please call me. I didn't. Not out of spite, I just wasn't ready. Not for whatever spin, guilt trip, or deflection she had lined up. But I did read the email. It was long, rambling, a weird mix of apology and self-defense, like, we didn't mean to hurt you, but you always kept your distance, kind of gaslighting wrapped in faux humility. She wrote, I wish we had seen you better, but you always seemed okay on your own. No shit, Mom. That's what survival looks like. At the end, she wrote, your father says you crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Cool. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the audio studio I'd rented and recorded something new. Not for release. Not yet. Just for me. I talked into the mic like I was talking to my childhood self. Told him he did a good job holding it together. That he didn't imagine it. That he wasn't crazy. That he mattered. When I played it back, I cried, ugly, loud crying that left my eyes raw and my chest empty. A week later, I got a text from my aunt, my dad's older sister. I don't know what you said in that speech, but it cracked something open. He hasn't spoken to Emma. Says she chose sides. He's been sleeping on the office couch. I asked if she wanted me to do anything. She said no. Just wanted me to know. That was the thing about finally telling the truth. You couldn't control the ripples. They hit everyone differently. Some healed, some broke. Allison kept texting me, not clingy, just checking in, sharing small things, her new therapist, a book she was reading, photos of her real face, no filters, no edits. She said she was thinking of quitting the company and starting something of her own. Not media. Something quiet. Real. Maybe a rescue dog shelter, she wrote one night. I like the idea of giving abandoned things a home. I told her that sounded more authentic than anything we'd grown up with. She said, you want to help me name it? And I sat there for like 10 minutes, because damn, that one hit different. Then one morning, out of nowhere, my dad called. I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. Hello. Long pause. Then Jake. His voice was flat, like he'd been rehearsing and still wasn't ready. I read everything, listened to twice. I didn't say anything. I didn't know half of it. The other half, I guess I didn't want to know. I stayed quiet. I don't agree with how you did it. Broadcasting everything, making us look like monsters. That got a laugh out of me. You did that part yourselves. Another pause. I'm not good at this, he admitted. I wasn't good at being a father to you. No shit, but I'd like to try. I sighed. Why now? He didn't hesitate. Because losing your daughter's respect is hell. And I figure it's the first time I felt a fraction of what I made you feel. I closed my eyes. This isn't about fixing the family, I said. It's about making sure we don't lie to each other anymore. That's fair, he said. Then could we have dinner? Just you, me, and your mom. I'll think about it. That night, I told Danny everything. I'm not ready to forgive them, I said. You don't have to, she said. but maybe you're ready to stop carrying the weight. She always knows what to say, not with fluff, with clarity. So I called my mom, told her I'd meet them. Public place, no drama, no speeches, no manipulation. She cried. I didn't. We met at this tiny diner on Sunset, the kind with cracked booths and syrup-sticky menus. I picked it on purpose. No luxury, just ground level. We sat, we talked, mostly surface stuff. Then it got heavy. My mom apologized. Genuinely this time. My dad tried, stumbled, but owned some things. I told them the story of when I broke my wrist in middle school and no one came to the hospital. They both looked like I'd just punched them. My dad said, I don't even remember that. That's the point. I said, we didn't hug, didn't walk away healed, but we left with the same thing for once, silence that wasn't hostile. Just tired. And honest, on the way home, I asked Danny, do you think I went too far? She looked at me and said, no, I think you finally went far enough. And that's the part people don't talk about with revenge stories. It's not about punishment. It's about return. Not to them, to yourself. So here's the weird part. No one prepares you for. After you rip the Band-Aid off and everyone sees the wound, you still have to live with the scar. And people, they won't stop touching it. 2 days after the diner sit-down, I was sitting in a podcast network's office in Culver City. Clean white walls. Plants in every corner. Neon sign that said, Truth Sells. Yeah, no pressure. The exec leaned forward and said, we think Unfiltered Bloodline could be a whole season. Maybe more. Real stories. Anonymous submissions. Like The Moth Meets Family Trauma. I blinked. So, trauma, but make it profitable. She laughed. Well, yeah, but also healing. She had a point. I'd gotten over 900 emails from people who said the show cracked them open. Grown men who hadn't spoken to their siblings in 20 years. Daughters who finally said no to their moms. People who left family group chats like they were escaping cults. I didn't say yes to the deal. Not yet. Because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be the guy you know. The trauma guy. The unofficial therapist of the emotionally neglected. Danny said, you don't have to wear the costume just because you made it. And she was right. Again. So I waited. Meanwhile, my parents were getting torched online. Someone from their company had leaked internal memos to the press stuff about nepotism, fake job titles, Allison's brand strategy retreats that were actually spa weekends in Sedona. Their board freaked. Shares dipped. There was a very public reshuffling. Allison quit before she could be pushed out. Posted a soft-lit video on Instagram with a caption about choosing authenticity and pursuing real joy. Honestly, it was the first time I believed her. She followed it up a week later with a TikTok that was just her in sweatpants holding a senior chihuahua named Frank. No makeup, no filter. She looked human. Rescue's hard, she said in the video, but being fake was harder. The comments brutal at first, then softened, then supportive. Redemption arcs aren't real unless you earn them. And she was starting to do the work. We started texting more. She sent me updates about the dog shelter she was setting up, said she named it Second Light. I asked why? She said, because some things only bloom after they've been forgotten. Okay, maybe she was still a little dramatic, but I let it slide. A month passed. I got an email from my old high school subject line. Would you consider speaking at our mental health assembly? I almost deleted it. But then I thought about that auditorium, the scratchy chairs, the way I used to sit in the back and draw on my shoes so I wouldn't cry. So I said yes. I stood in front of 300 kids and told the truth about being invisible, about how perfection doesn't protect you, about how silence isn't the same as peace. And when I finished, a girl in the front row raised her hand and asked, what if you speak up and no one believes you? And I said, speak anyway, because even if they don't hear you, you'll finally hear yourself. She cried, and that's when I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reflection and making sure nobody else thought they were crazy for needing love they never got. Meanwhile, my dad kept calling. Not daily, just often enough to be weird. Sometimes just to share a random memory, sometimes to say nothing useful at all. One day he said, "Do you remember that old fishing trip we took when you were 10? I laughed. "You mean the one you bailed on last minute, so your assistant took me instead?" Silence. "Oh," he said. "Yeah," I said. Another time, he left a voicemail where he tried to contribute to the podcast, said he had stories, said he wanted to understand. I didn't delete it, but I didn't call him back either. Some lines stay blurred for a reason. My mom was quieter, sent occasional emails with articles like how to support your grown kids emotionally. Baby steps, I guess. And then one day, it happened. A voicemail from my aunt. "Jake, something's going on. You might want to check the business registration filings." I opened the California Secretary of State's site, typed in my parents' company, and yeah, there it was. They had listed Allison as a former executive, effective retroactively. But here's the kicker. They had added my name, under a new entity, a spin-off. The description: Educational Media Division focused on family communication, identity, and storytelling. My heart dropped. I called my dad. He picked up fast. Too fast! "You saw it," he said. "What is this?" "It's not charity," he said. "It's your voice, and it matters, more than mine ever did." I didn't know what to say. "Look," he continued, "I can't change the past, but I can start clearing space in the present." "Why now?" "Because Allison asked me to." That part hit harder than it should have. He paused. "She said, if Jake can forgive you enough to let you try, then I can forgive myself enough to stop trying to be your puppet." I sat with that for a long time. And for once, I believed him. That night, I told Danny everything. "Maybe they're trying," I said. She looked at me. Thoughtful. "Trying is good, but that doesn't mean you owe them the rest of your life." "I know." "Then don't give them your future," she said. "Just let them help build something better for others." That stuck with me, so I said yes to the media project, but with boundaries. I drafted a proposal I'd consult on stories, help shape editorial, run a weekly segment highlighting submitted narratives from real people, but I wouldn't be a puppet. No spin, no backroom edits, no family rebrand. My dad signed off. Quietly, respectfully. 3 weeks later, we launched The Thread, a digital storytelling platform under the new division. First-person audio kine, letters. Short documentaries all about the stuff people are too scared to say at the dinner table. Our tagline: some things need to be unspooled to be understood. Submissions flooded in. A woman from Missouri wrote about her mother pretending her miscarriage never happened. A guy from Chicago wrote about being the secret gay son no one acknowledged. A kid from Fresno wrote about growing up in a foster home and calling his caseworker mom. It was raw, beautiful, unfiltered. I hosted a weekly podcast called Under the Rug, where we read stories that families tried to forget. I did it from my living room. No studio. Just me, a mic, and honesty. And people showed up. Because the truth, it doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs a space. And I'd finally made one. I didn't realize I had been holding my breath for 30-something years until people I'd never met started breathing with me. The thread exploded in ways none of us expected. We thought maybe a few thousand listens, some niche shares, maybe a Medium article or two. Instead, we had college classes referencing our episodes, therapists playing clips during group sessions, even a nonprofit that wanted to partner for a mobile storytelling bus. It was surreal. Every week, I sat at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, dog snoring next to me, and hit record. And every week, people sent in their stories like paper boats into the ocean, hoping anyone would catch them before they sank. They weren't perfect stories. They didn't have Hollywood arcs. They had messy middle parts and uncomfortable endings. Like one from a guy whose mom pretended his dad died when he was 5, only for him to run into the man at a gas station at 27. Or the woman who said her family made her lie about her sister's eating disorder because image is everything. One story just said, "I still set a place for him at the table. He's not dead. Just chose his new wife over his old kids. But I still hope." That one stayed with me. Still does. Because that's what grief really is, right? Hoping in places logic tells you not to, and loving people even after you stop liking them. Meanwhile, my life was weirdly normal. Danny and I adopted a mutt named Soda. Half pit bull, half we don't know. He farts like a truck driver and cries if you leave the room for longer than 60 seconds, which is honestly very relatable. We hosted dinner with friends more often. No tension, no performative politeness. Just board games, barefoot conversations, and messy kitchen counters. Every now and then, I'd get a text from my mom. "He's reading again. Told me he likes fiction now. Never saw that coming." Or, "Allison's dog peed on the couch and she cried laughing instead of panicking." Growth. I never replied right away. Sometimes not at all, but I read them. Let them land. Let them exist without expectation. "I wasn't cold. I was careful. There's a difference." Then one night, Allison called me. Said she was finally opening the shelter, like officially licenses, space, staff, everything. "I want you to come," she said. "No cameras, no press. Just you." I almost said no. Out of instinct. But something in her voice. It wasn't guilt or manipulation. It was something quieter. Something I recognized. Loneliness. So I flew to Portland. She picked me up herself in a beat-up Prius with mismatched hubcaps and a Wagmore Bark-less bumper sticker. She was wearing a hoodie, no makeup, and leggings covered in dog hair. "You hungry?" she asked. I could eat. She took me to a diner, same kind of booth style, syrup sticky place I took our parents to after the fallout. "Figured we could keep the pattern going," she joked. We didn't talk much at first, just shared fries, looked around, took in the fact that neither of us was performing anymore. Then she said, "I know I used to be awful." I didn't respond. I didn't know who I was without their spotlight on me. And when it moved, I panicked. I sipped my soda. But watching you, hearing you, it made me realize I could do something outside of their orbit. "You already are." I said, "You built this place." She smiled. "Want to see it tomorrow?" "Yeah," I said, "I do." The shelter wasn't big, but it was beautiful. Faded teal walls, old couches, sunlit windows, and soft jazz playing over a cheap speaker. Dogs barked. One peed on my shoe. I didn't care. There was a little plaque near the front door. I almost didn't notice it. Dedicated to the ones who were forgotten, and to the ones who refused to stay that way. I looked at her. She shrugged. Figured we needed both. She gave me a tour, told me the names of every dog, their backstories, their weird quirks. This one only sleeps under weighted blankets. This guy terrified of vacuum sounds but loves Metallica. She was glowing. Not like Instagram filter glowing. Just alive in a way I'd never seen. When we sat down at the end, I said, "You did something real here." She looked at me and said, "So did you." I didn't know how much I needed that until it hit me like a wave. A few weeks later, I got an email from the family company, from one of the board members. Said they were creating a new advisory role, not just for PR or storytelling, but for ethics and accountability. Said they wanted me to consider taking it. I laughed, out loud, then forwarded it to Danny with the subject line, LOL. She replied, "Plot twist I didn't see coming." I didn't say yes, but I didn't block them either. I just let the email sit, like a letter on the table you're not ready to open, but you don't throw away. And maybe that's what healing is. Not jumping back in, not rewriting history, just letting the unopened letter exist, without fear. The last time I saw my dad in person was at a bookstore event. I was doing a talk about Under the Rug, our latest series focused on generational guilt and what gets passed down when nobody talks. He sat in the back row, didn't speak, just listened. Afterward, I walked over. He stood. I liked the story about the mother and the casserole. He said, "Thanks," I replied. "I think I did that once." He said, "Told your mom we should say you were at a friend's house when really, we just forgot to pick you up." That tracks. I said. He nodded. "I was a coward," he said. "Still am, most days. I didn't rush to forgive him. Just said, you showed up today. That counts for something." We stood in silence. Then he said, "I'm trying to be the version of me I wish I had when I was raising you." That line cracked something in me, not in a clean way, but in a necessary one. Later that night, I recorded a private voice memo. For myself. I do that sometimes. Little audio letters I never send, like writing to ghosts. This one said, "Today, the man who left me at school showed up to my book talk. He didn't apologize the right way, but he didn't lie. And maybe that's what growth looks like when it's slow, not clean slates, just clearer mirrors. I'm not done healing, but I'm not waiting for them to fix it anymore. I'm good, not great, but good. And for the first time, that feels like enough."